You know, it's not uncommon for movie stars to clash on set when a movie's being made. You got creative differences, personality conflicts, you got big dollars, big personalities, and even bigger egos all in play. But Blake Lively, in her lawsuit against It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni, takes those conflicts to a whole new level. Lively filed a $250 million lawsuit against her co-star and virtually everyone involved in production of the movie, alleging sexual harassment and other kind of conduct like fat shaming and trying to engage in a smear campaign against her. Of course, Baldoni filed a $400 million counter lawsuit alleging that Lively was an on-set bully and she was a nightmare to work with, and when details about her on-set behavior leaked, she filed a lawsuit in order to portray herself as a victim and preserve her reputation. What's funny is that, Blake Lively filed a lawsuit for $250 million. He filed a lawsuit for $400 million, and the movie only made $80 million. Whatever. So join me in a legal deep dive in the Blake Lively It Ends With Us lawsuit. What's good, people? An experienced actor should understand that when you're making a movie, inevitably there are going to be conflicts with co-stars and the production team, sometimes maybe even arguments. It's kind of an occupational hazard. And you would think that for the most part, unless conduct is just outrageous or just completely inappropriate, that the actor or actors would resolve these conflicts eternally, put them to rest, or just move on even. But with Blake Lively, not so much. Shortly after the release of the movie It Ends With Us, Blake Lively filed a lawsuit against her co-star Justin Baldoni and basically the entire production team, alleging sexual harassment, engaging in a smear campaign, saying she was difficult to work with, saying they were fat shaming her, and all other types of just conduct that she just deemed irreprehensible. Such conduct, she believes, damaged her to the tune of $400 million. Whatever. As part of her lawsuit, Lively actually released select text messages which she believes corroborate her allegations about Baldoni's behavior. Now, to put things into context, Baldoni actually purchased the rights to the book of the same name, It Ends With Us, and he was the director of the movie, and Lively was brought in to play the lead. In response to Lively's lawsuit, Baldoni filed a countersuit against her and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, aka Deadpool, saying that basically Lively was brought in to play a role and became an on-set bully, hijacking the film to the point where he was excluded from his own movie. He even talked about how, in addition to bringing in her husband, Ryan Reynolds, aka Deadpool, Lively also brought in Taylor Swift, who she called collectively her dragons. And basically, Lively, Deadpool, and Swiftie hijacked the film. They used their influence at Sony to push Baldoni out, and basically she rewrote a script for a book she didn't even read. Now, at this stage of the case, there's been no trial, there's been no testimony, no depositions. So in order to give you my opinions, I reviewed two things. First, the pleadings filed on behalf of both sides, and two, the text messages that were released by both sides. Now, I'm going to tell you, I put a lot more weight, if not all of the weight, on the text messages. When you look at pleadings in a lawsuit, it's the nature of the beast that the person's attorney is going to allege outrageous conduct, that their client, the party who is so aggrieved, is a victim of outrageous conduct and suffered irreparable harm that no person should have to endure. And as a result, they just suffered millions and millions of dollars, which would never be enough. However, unchallenged pleadings and the dollar will get you a cup of coffee. Now, text messages, on the other hand, that's a different story. Text messages, when viewed over a course of communication and conduct over an extended time period, they tell a more complete picture. Now, it's not the same when a single text message is released and you can try to take it out of context or spin it a certain way. To really fully understand the nature of communications or conduct by the parties, text messages that were exchanged over an ongoing period of months really tells a very complete picture of the relationship between the parties, how the parties conducted themselves, and they're made in real time. And spoiler alert, only one of the parties in this lawsuit released all of the text messages they exchanged. And it wasn't Gossip Girl, and it wasn't Deadpool. In fact, Justin Baldoni's lawyer created a website where he posted all of the text messages for anyone in the public to read. And when you read the text messages in their entirety, it paints a very clear picture of the relationship and the interaction between the parties. Now, let's look at the facts in the light most favorable to Gossip Girl. She alleges that her co-star added additional sex scenes to the movie that were not a part of the original script, and the scenes were inappropriate and without her consent. She alleges that he walked in on her in her trailer unannounced while she was not dressed, and he fat-shamed her, questioned her about her weight, and also, during one scene where they were dancing, he inappropriately took his nose, which she called big, across her neck during that scene. A scene which she says was unscripted and inappropriate. She also states that once she made the sexual assault allegations, that Baldoni responded by engaging in a smear campaign against her, damaging her reputation. Now let's talk about what sexual harassment is, getting back down to the basics. Sexual harassment is basically unwanted and uninvited behavior of a sexual nature. It could be verbal, it could be physical, and it could be of a repeated nature. Usually it's done by a person of authority over the person that's the victim or recipient of the harassment. Now, to give you all some context of the plot in the book, although in the movie a big theme is the domestic violence that occurred, in the book, a big premise of the book was the two main characters being involved in a very steamy, hot sexual relationship where they can't keep their hands off each other. The abuser is a sex addict. So there's a lot of intense, physical sex. Well, physical sex is redundant, of course, but a lot of intense sex scenes in the book, which the movie necessarily had to recreate. That was a big theme of the book, which, of course, Lively didn't bother to read. But those are the characters they are playing in the movie. Now, I've seen the dance scene that Lively complains about, where they're dancing, and to give you some context, and it's on the internet, you can see the scene. They are face-to-face dancing, locked in hand, fingers interlaced, nose to nose, kind of talking, smiling. That's the scene. And there is a scene where Baldoni takes his nose in the middle of the scene and strokes it against her neck. Now, I tell you, when you watch that scene, you don't see Lively do anything to indicate that she's uncomfortable. She doesn't stop, she doesn't pause, she doesn't stop smiling or frown or back away. She continues to go through the scene. And even if the scene was unscripted, you kind of have to understand people are in character. They are filming a scene for a movie. They're going to be in character. They're going to improvise a little bit. That's just kind of part of the creative process of making a movie. You hear about that all the time from actors. And this scene goes on for minutes. And if you watch this scene, you do not see anything to indicate Lively was in the least bit uncomfortable. And they're not alone. They're surrounded by people. The entire production staff. Now, Lively wants to say all these scenes were unscripted and edited and added without her knowledge and consent, but the text messages reveal a completely different picture. The text messages indicate that Baldoni actually hired an intimacy coordinator, and that's someone they bring on set for a couple of different reasons. One, to make sure that the female actress is not being taken advantage of, or there are any liberties being taken that are not necessary to the movie, and that's important. But also to really kind of make sure the scenes are realistic from a female perspective and from a male perspective when it comes to intimate scenes. That's an intimacy coordinator. Very popular, used in lots of movies, and I think it's a great idea. In the text message, you'll see that Baldoni actually hired the female intimacy coordinator, and contacted Lively and said, hey, I found this lady, she's gonna be great. I wanna get you guys together so you guys can talk before we get on set. You see Lively responded, no, don't worry about it. That's fine, I'll just talk to her when we get on the set. So he's making every effort to make sure she's comfortable and make sure things are being done professionally based on text messages. Well, that's all I got, but I do appreciate you taking the time to join me on this legal deep dive. I think it's always fun to discuss these topics, tell you what I think, and get your feedback. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to like the video, subscribe to the podcast, and also I'd appreciate you sending me your comments so we can discuss the topics you want to hear about. That's it.